right, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the chat so that if you have any questions today, you can go ahead and put those in the chat and we will make sure that those questions get asked. My name is Maria Dismondy. You can hear my voice. I am the publisher at Cardinal Rule Press, and we are here to support this special back to school panel with these creative individuals. So we are going to start off with some introductions, and in the upper left-hand corner for me is Kathryn, and you are already unmuted. Would you like to begin?
Sure. I'm so glad to see everybody's smiling faces. I'm honored to be here. My name is Kathryn Otosh. I'm an author and illustrator of character building books. A lot of the books that I do really focuses on things that happen at school during the lunch break, things that can happen when kids can be not so nice and how to respond to that. So I just want to say I'm really privileged again to be here, and I do go to schools across the country to be able to talk about some of these character building values that I like to impart in my books, as well as doing creative art projects that also instill the messages of inclusion. So
Wonderful. We're so glad that you are here. Thank you, Kathryn. Moni, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Moni Ritchie Hadley, and I'm a former teacher. I taught for LA Unified School District for 30 years. And when I retired, I got really serious about writing. And so I'm the author of 3 books. You can see behind me, The Star Festival was my first. And today's actually my launch day for Miso Magic. I don't have the books yet. The shipping is delayed, but I'm really excited about this one because it has a lot of connections to science and health, which can be used in the classroom on the fermentation process and transformation and that sort of thing. But the book that I'm here to discuss today is Anzu in the Art of Friendship. And this is about a girl who's starting a new school and is trying to connect with her classmates. And she thinks she's going to be, making those connections through being helpful. And when the class really struggles with the origami folds, which she knows very well, things don't go as planned. And she has to kind of find a new way to make that connection.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And we get to be with you on launch day, which is authors, we all know that is very special. So welcome and congratulations. And Shannon.
Hello, I'm Shannon Anderson, and I was also a former elementary teacher for 25 years. And I just a few years ago stopped teaching to write and speak full-time. Last year, I was in 70 different classrooms in different schools doing author visits, and I absolutely love getting to do that. Although I just had kind of a new thing come along, and a couple of weeks ago, I started teaching at my alma mater for my undergrad at Franklin College. So I am right now in my classroom with my college students who are all studying to be teachers. So I thought it would be kind of cool for them to get to experience this panel with us. I have written over 20 children's books. One of them that is coming out next month is called Do It Yourself Dollhouse. I'm very excited about this one because this is all about, it's kind of like when I was growing up and I didn't have very much. And so my parents taught me how to be very creative and resourceful. And so the type of dollhouse that I had growing up were made from boxes. And I loved being creative and resourceful in figuring out things that I could make into furniture or into the dolls themselves. And someone that lived not too far from me actually was a little higher up in the socioeconomic level, and she had, the dream dollhouse. But it just so happened she always enjoyed playing with my dollhouse more because it was something that she could help me create things, and we got to use our imagination and creativity. So Do It Yourself Dollhouse has a lot of STEM potential because we can do dioramas and we can do little forts and we can do doll houses and all kinds of things and think about how we can make those types of things. Another book I'm very excited about that just released this month is called B is for Belonging. And this one is a great back to school book about inclusion, acceptance, about understanding that we all belong. And that difference between belonging, which is being yourself in a group of people, versus fitting in is when you need to kind of change to be accepted by a group. And so belonging is always better than fitting in. We always want to make sure that people feel like they are accepted for who they are. And so that's a message that I thought could be brought through a children's book.
Fantastic, wonderful introductions. And teachers, I do want you to know that we are recording this because we had over 50 people sign up, 50 classrooms sign up, and not everyone can attend at this exact time. So I just want you to know your students, if you do have your camera on, they are not being recorded. We would not share your students with anyone else. So just the speakers are going to be recorded. So we have the word belonging, right? And you talked about how important it is to belong to a school community, to belong as who you are and not as pretending to be someone else. Let's go back to what Moni had said. She talked a little bit about her story and about friendship. And she talked about a specific character trait. Can we go back to that, Moni? What were you saying? It was all around the building of origami.
Yeah, so I originally wrote this story because actually the story came to me from the publisher. The bones of it came to me from the publisher and they asked me to write it. But the themes of starting a new school and trying to cultivate those skills to make friends was very personal to me because I'm a military brat and I moved very often as a child and just new places all the time. I was incredibly shy and I had to find strategies to deal with that. It was always a really big event and so a very common theme in my life. So my way of integrating or finding friends was to join a class or a club or a hobby or find a hobby. And so when this book came to me, I thought that would be a great way in. So Anzu starts this classroom and she finds out they're doing an origami unit and she's thrilled because she has experience doing this and she thinks this is going to be great. I can be helpful. And what happens is the class really struggles with the origami because they're unfamiliar and her attempts at helping the class don't go so well. So it's really, there's a lot of family themes in here also. She confers with her grandpa, her Oji-san, and they discuss it. And he reminds her that making friends is very much like learning the skills of origami. You need patience and practice. So, and when she does that and she goes back to school and she starts to implement that, the focus really comes off of her and she really looks at her classmates and what do they really need. It isn't just, the showing how to fold, and she finds other ways to connect with them. And that's when the classroom really opens up to her.
That's beautiful. And, the word I pull from that when I'm listening is the word patience, because not only did it take patience for her origami skills, but it takes patience to make friends too. And I think sometimes we go to a new event as maybe a grown-up, or we go to the new first day of school as a student and you think, I'm gonna make all these friends. And you come home and you think, oh, I only met one person. It takes patience to build a friendship. Friendships can't be built in one day because you have to get to know people. And you might make a friend on the first day of school, and then on the second day of school, you play with someone else and now you have two friends. So, it's all about the patience in friendship as well, and the patience in meeting people who you connect with. I also really took from your conversation, Moni, is that you can make friends in different ways. So maybe it's in the lunchroom, maybe it's playing soccer on the playground, or maybe you see a friend during free choice reading a book and you say, I love reading books too. So it's going to, making friends takes patience, but then you also can make friends in many different ways. I love that.
And I do love, it's like the skill is important because it is a reoccurring skill that you use throughout your life. You will start middle school, you will start high school, you will start college, you will become a mom and need support of new friends who, maybe your older friends don't have kids. And so it just happens throughout life.
Wonderful. Let's go over to Kathryn and hear about maybe pull one of your books or maybe one of the themes of your books, or you had mentioned a lot about character traits through your different stories.
Right. Well, Lunch Every Day is one of the books that I felt like would be really relevant to the conversation, but it really has to do with labeling. And Trudy Ledwig, who's a friend of mine, an author, she's the one that told me, we are all so much more than just a label. But it's so interesting when we first are introduced to a new situation. We might say, oh, they're the smart ones, or they're the great with tech, or this and that. And in this case, with this book, Jimmy is labeled the bully for actually, partially good reason. He takes another kid's lunch at school every day. And the flip side of it is we realize that he's doing this as the reader because he actually is very hungry. He has, in real life, this is based on a true story, he had 5 older brothers, and there was just never enough food in the house. And the reason he took that kid's lunch was because he was ashamed to stand under the free lunch sign. Even when he's sent to the principal's office, for example, what he never reveals is he has a troubled home life, and we don't know really what is going on in other people's lives behind closed doors. And Jimmy does take his aggressions out at school, and things don't really change, even though the principal tries to reach out and help. And what happens is he's invited to a party, and lo and behold, it's the kid he's been taking the lunch from. And he's pretty sure he's not going to go, but he decides at the last minute. And this is also about our choices we have as individuals, and when we go out into the playground, what happens. But he chooses to go. And it's really all about him being very worried about going to this party, thinking he's going to leave. And then what happens is the mom of the kid he's been taking lunch from sees him, and she marches right up to him. And he's thinking, why did I try? Why did I try to make friends? Why did I go? And he's almost in tears because he feels like he's going to be yelled at in front of everybody. And what happens is she kneels down and she says, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you a second lunch, and my son will bring it for you every day. And it surprises him a lot in real life, which again, this happened, but it ends up, she keeps to her promise to make him a lunch, and it changes his life. And Jim ends up becoming an educator, and now he helps troubled teens. So, but part of the reason what I felt like this would relate so appropriately is because we don't know what everybody's going through. We might see a kid crying and want to label them as such, but the truth is there might be reasons behind it. When we go a little bit and extend ourselves a little bit farther, or we do a kind act, and it allows walls to break down, and we're able to truly open up to each other. And that's how we start building community in the classroom, in the lunchroom, and everywhere else.
Wow. And the word that I really think about when you're talking about this experience, which is beautiful, by the way, just so beautiful, is the word empathy, is taking the time to imagine, at the beginning, they didn't know why he was taking other people's lunches. So just even thinking like, why would someone take someone else's lunch? And then when you might find out, wow, they don't have something to eat for lunches, putting yourself in their shoes and saying, gosh, how would I deal with that? That is something really hard. So empathy is a beautiful thing. The next question I have, ladies, now that we've talked a little bit about character in our stories, is what inspires you to write? So you can pick out a specific moment. I know, Kathryn, you mentioned Trudy, and I think you said that this story came from an actual event that happened. So we can talk about different experiences of inspiration.
I wasn't sure if I should just go ahead, but I'm going to launch
go
right
ahead.
in since you kind of gave me that foray. Yes, I'm inspired by true events. A lot of times, a lot of things that I write about are actually problems I experienced as an adult. So, for example, Zero deals with self-esteem and finding value. I was very scared actually to try a new career being a children's book author, and more so even to speak in front of others. That was the scariest thing of all, was for me to speak in front of 5-year-olds. And so yeah, and issues of bullying, I did see bullying happening at my school, to the extent that the girl who was being bullied would hide herself in the girls' bathroom, and stand there throughout the entire lunch period in the stall, not coming out. And a lot of these things that I felt with inclusion, my own lack of self-esteem growing up that I had to kind of get over, and also building empathy and patience too. I'm still working on these things to this very day, but that inspires me, is actually problems that I'm experiencing as an adult, that I use books, journaling, drawing, illustrating to express myself and to come up with a solution that feels authentic to me.
That's beautiful. That, I think journaling is an important part of my process as well, just as a human being. And I'm involved in a nonprofit, and we go to schools and we bring books for children, and the kids always want journals. And we are bringing gently used books. We don't have journals, but they are always asking for journals. So that's something that I'm putting my mind to. I want to get more journals for kids because I think it can be a beautiful thing. Inspiration, Shannon or Moni. And because we have to be flexible in life, my neighbor is having some work done at their house, so I have to keep muting myself because there's some noise coming in.
Well, I can share that for me, my very first book was about my daughter, Maddie, who had an eye issue. She had amblyopia and strabismus, and she had to wear an eye patch. So my very first book was I Am Not a Pirate. And it was how she got through that situation of having to wear an eye patch for 3 years with a sense of humor. And that was kind of my first book that I ever had come out, which was obviously based on a true story. And then most of my other books were inspired by students I had. Over 25 years, you have hundreds and hundreds of students. And so I started writing about things that I would notice. Like I have a story called Penelope Perfect that's about a girl that was a perfectionist to the point where she would be in tears almost every day if she misspelled a word or she missed a math problem. Coasting Casey is about a student that I had who was very artistically and creatively talented. However, when it came to doing anything with math or like a report of some kind, he would just crumble and didn't want to do anything like that, only creative projects. So that book was inspired for that. Through that, I've written several books on growth mindset because I've seen the power of having a growth mindset and believing in yourself and understanding that mistakes are part of our process of learning. So I've written quite a bit about growth mindset. I've written about perseverance through the story I Love Strawberries, which is more based on me than my students, because I have always been, well, my mom always said I was strong-willed. I try to keep that as a positive, as I was determined. I was very goal-oriented and went after those goals. And so that story is all about like not giving up and trying different ways when one avenue doesn't work. And the B is for Belonging book was inspired by when I read a Brene Brown book that was called Atlas of the Heart, where she defines the different emotions that it takes to be human. And when she explained the difference between belonging and fitting in, I just felt like that was something that kids really needed to understand, because so many times we have kids who will change how they act, how they dress, who they're friends with to be able to fit in with a certain group of other kids. And I want kids to embrace who they are and to understand that they are worthy and valued as they are. And we all have differences, which is a good thing. And so I want kids to understand that that's a positive thing to be different. Our similarities bond us, but our differences make us special. And the Do-It-Yourself Dollhouse book was based again on me, on my childhood experience of not having very much and being able to I never really thought of myself as being, the poor kid that was less than or anything like that. I actually loved being resourceful and making things. And my mom even used to make my doll clothes for my dolls. And she made my doll furniture sometimes out of like plastic canvas and things. And I feel like as a teacher, I'm much more creative because I learned how to make things work and to work with things that I just had. If you couldn't go out and buy something, you could make it. There was a workaround, and to be a creative problem solver. And so I wanted to write Do It Yourself Dollhouse to just celebrate that we all have the potential to be creative and resourceful. And it's so much more fun to make something of your own. I always encourage people, especially kids, to make gifts instead of going out and buying gifts, or make a card instead of buying one, because for one, it's much more meaningful, but it's also more fun. When you have a dollhouse that's already created, and that, you know, the company that made the dollhouse already has like the bookshelf drawn on the back wall and the couch drawn on there, it's kind of like getting a coloring book that's already colored. It's no fun. And so if you get to make everything for it, that makes it a lot more fun. It makes it more meaningful. And so I just want to, I guess, push creativity with kids and to help them use their imagination more.
I love that. And we had a second grade class who had to go to music, but they were so happy to meet real life authors. So they said, thank you. Moni, do you want to tell us, I know we were talking about inspiration. You can tell us about inspiration, or our next question is going to be about your process. So you could tell us about your process if you'd like instead. So we're wondering, is there something specific that one or more of you does that is part of your process? So for example, I once met an author who liked to listen to rock and roll music when she wrote. And that was really different for me because I need it to be very quiet when I'm writing. So you can share with us a little bit of your inspiration, or if you want to go into the next question, which is about something about your writing process.
Well, both have changed over time. So I'll just really quick tell you that I used to be very inspired by my daughter when she was young. That's when I started writing and everything she was going through. But in 2017, my mother came to live with me. And when that happened, you know, I've been in America for a very long time, but I lived in Japan as a child. And when that happened, all these my dig into that side of the family just started happening, and my books at the time were not Japanese themed. They were you know, just general. I'm biracial, so so when that started happening, the Star Festival is from experiences going to Japanese holiday events as a child, and origami was very much part of my life. And then miso magic came out of my asking my mom why she didn't like beans, and it's because my grandpa had a miso making business in the back part of his property, and I had no idea that he did that because he did many things. So that prompted that. And likewise, my process for writing has changed also. I used to be very much of a pantser, just a spark of an idea, and then I'd sit down and I'd write it all out on paper, usually in my car someplace, and then spit out that draft, and then go through and revise it and search for the theme and do it that way. But now I'm a little more methodical about it, especially with miso magic. I kind of have the idea in my head, it simmers for a little while. I did a lot of research beforehand, researching the process of miso, and sometimes it's like word related associations I'll research, and I get all of that down on paper so that my head is filled with information, and when I go to write it, I just have much more to work with. I work in the center of my office, right where I am now, and it needs to be absolutely quiet. I prefer to work in the morning, but it usually gets edged out to a walk first, and then I work at around noon. So
Fantastic. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I love the story about your grandfather.
yeah.
Kathryn, would you like to share with us a little bit about your processes or anything that you like to share?
So I'm both author and illustrator, and so I have a different way of kind of going about it. But one of the first things that I think about is, what will my main characters look like as I'm writing the story? So for the book one, for example, it could be the main character could be a blob of color. It could be a square or a triangle, or it could be a boy, a robot, a little girl, for example. So that's one of the things I go into, look into. And then afterwards, I'm looking at the concept. So right now I'm working with author Jim Averbeck, a book that has to do with homelessness. And one of the things, it took me a while to figure out what I was going to do, but I was like, wow, I used to live in LA. What if I took pictures of concrete and, paper bag textures? One of the things that I noticed with homelessness is that in the beginning, I was kind of just horrified that, wow, look at all the people that don't have homes. And then over time, I got somehow more used to this very tragic situation. And I was thinking, this is something that I did where I stopped seeing them, and they almost faded into the background, where I saw them, but I didn't really see the situation. And so I thought that it'd be important that when this situation happens where they are finally seen, that they walk away from the background of the discarded aluminum cans, for example. So they're all sketched out on backgrounds, but when they're seen, they move away from that. And for example, Beautiful Hands had to do with, someone who was very sick, and every day he would hold his kid's hands in his and ask, what will your beautiful hands do today? And I felt like it was really important because Brett's Dream, who's the co-author of this book, always wanted to have a book for his kids. So I wanted his kids to do and help me with the illustration. So they made handprints in the book, and then more and more people ended up, joining into the process of the book, where
Oh my goodness.
we end up having, over 100 people's handprints create this story. And so it becomes something of a transformation as I'm working out what the book is going to be. The illustrations change as well. And the writing, of course, changes as well according to what I can do in the illustrations. So it goes back to the Ola Dodge, show, don't tell. But yeah, my illustrations are always changing according to, if it's watercolors, I might be expressing grief because of tears, for example. So it's a process.
Wow, thank you for sharing. Wow, that's wonderful. And Shannon, do you have anything you'd like to share about your process with us?
Well, I'm also one of those that has to have complete quiet, and I do have a writing area that I go to, and sometimes it's all over the place. I might be at the kitchen table, I might be out on my balcony area, I might be on the couch. But my process usually starts with some kind of idea, and then I start making lists of all kinds. It might be lists of character names. It might be lists of, if it's a topic about dollhouses, I'm looking up anything that has to do with dollhouses, like the wordplay of it, or I'm on Pinterest looking at dollhouses. I'm trying to find anything that relates to dollhouses. And then another part of my process is, my favorite section of the library is always the new books section. So I will go there and I will look at what kinds of new picture books are out there. Is there something that has to do with the topic that I'm looking at? And then I will also look at books that are already out there, whether they're new or not. And I'm also looking at, even though most of my books are fiction, I'm also looking at the nonfiction side of that, like the nonfiction side of how do you create a dollhouse, or the nonfiction side of, when I was doing I Love Strawberries, it's about a girl who wants to grow her own strawberries, but I was learning about how do you grow strawberries? I mean, I had grown my own for 10 years, but just finding out those facts and things also just helps you to have more information to pull from. Kind of like Moni said, like when you've got all of the information in front of you, then it's accessible. And when you're ready to write about it, you just have it all there, and the inspiration starts flowing. And sometimes it even causes you to go in a completely different direction than you originally planned.
And this, my friends, is why we go to school. This is why we have the job of being in the classroom as students, so that you can learn new things and that you can explore and do the research and learn new processes and learn about how other people do things. Do you need to do your writing exactly like Moni had mentioned, or do you need to create your art like Kathryn said, or do your research like Shannon? Absolutely not. But you get to decide what you are going to do and who you are going to be. You choose your choices. And that's why it's so important for us to see you going to school every day and taking your job seriously. Because then what you get to do is you get to decide, what do I like to do and what am I good at? And then you get to do it for your job every day of your life. And so we are so thankful that you were here today on our back to school panel to hear from these 3 creative geniuses, who we also call authors and illustrators, to hear about how they are creating things for the world. And just know that creation can come in many different ways, right? Many different forms. We have people like Taylor Swift who is creating music. We have people who are creating movies that you're going to see on the big screen. There are many ways to create, and picture books is one of them. So without further ado, I'm just so thankful for your time, authors, and we hope that you have a fantastic Q4, rest of the fall season and the rest of the year. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.